Please take a coin, put it in the pushka, so we have tefillah, tzedakah, and now let's have Edvater, and the fact that we're doing it together in the concept of Hakel, the concept of unity, assembly, it will certainly accomplish this which it's supposed to, that we have the ultimate Hakel with Mashiach in the Beis HaMikdash. Talking about Mashiach, talking about going to Beis HaMikdash, there's a story in the parsha of this week. The story tells us how Yehuda, one of the sons of Yaakov Avinu, had a relationship with a woman that he did not know who she is. But it turned out that this was Tamar, and from this relationship was born Peretz. And the pasuk says, "Vahi be'is lidato," when she gave birth, she had twins actually, and Vayikro Shemoy Peretz, he forced himself to be the firstborn, and she called him Poretz. Ma poratz tolecha. Poretz, says Rashi, says the pasuk, with such strength you have forced yourself, and therefore, which is from the word Poretz, and therefore she called him Vayikro, he called him Peretz. Who is this Peretz? Peretz is actually the forefather of David HaMelech, who is the forefather of Mashiach. So really, in this story, the Torah tells us about the birth of Mashiach. So listen to a medrash on these verses over here. A medrash Rabbi says the following. Vahi bo'esahi, and at that time, and Yehuda went away from his brothers, and that's when he had this relationship with this woman. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman says the following. I know man's thinking, says God. What happened? The tribes, they were busy, preoccupied with the sale of Yosef, first with wanting to kill him, and then he sold him eventually into slavery. Yosef himself, Yosef was distressed. Yosef was commiserating his own plight. Reuven, the oldest brother, he himself was dealing with his own personal issues. Yaakov was mourning the disappearance, or what he thought, the death of Yosef. And Yehuda is busy finding a wife. And what does God do? And God himself is preoccupied with what? With creating the light of Melech HaMashiach. Excuse me. And thank you for your blessings. This is what the Medrash says. And this says on these verses over here where the Torah relates the story with Yehuda and his relationship and the birth of Peretz. So there's a beautiful explanation from the Sefer Yefei Toya, Rav Ashkenazi, who lived in the 1500s, and it says the following. What is the Medrash out to explain over here? So he says the following. The Medrash is trying to explain the flow of the story of this parasha. Because we know that the stories are not just stories. The stories is to teach us something. So when we look in the parasha of Vayeshev, there is like an interesting mix, a bag of stories. Yaakov wants to live in peace. Yosef is being shown certain preferences. Yosef is first almost killed and then sold into slavery. Yehuda is giving birth to Peretz. And then Yosef comes into Egypt, becomes a slave, becomes a prisoner, and he's thrown into the pit, is accused of immoral behavior. Says the Medrash, what is the flow of these stories? What is the story of Yehuda, particularly, having had this relationship with this woman who, again, he didn't know who it is, but it turned out was his own daughter-in-law. And Peretz was born out of it, of this relationship. What does it have to do in the story of Yosef being sold into slavery and Yosef being accused, etc., etc.? So comes the Medrash and says the following. God, while we are all busy with our own needs, while each and everyone, as it says, Yosef with his own plight, and Yaakov with his own plight, and Yehuda with looking for a wife, and so on, what is God busy with? Looking for the redemption of the Jewish people. While Yosef is going to go into Egypt, and there is a lot of suffering, but really, the ultimate result of all this is what? The coming out of Egypt and the birth of Mashiach. So it says the Medrash that we should know that even time of exile, what God is preoccupied is preparing our redemption. So God, you prepared it. Please make it happen today.